whole thing is situational. It utterly depends. Sometimes the lines can get blurry. See, Christian apologetics, it's about providing a rational, well-reasoned, logical, and evidentiary response to attacks, criticisms, etc. of the Christian faith. That is, if someone's attacking God, you defend God at all cost. Jesus, the Bible, Christianity, etc. You are to provide a refutation and a fact-based argument that destroys everything that comes against the knowledge of the one true and living God and his message. Okay, but at the same time, it's the Christian life, especially one of the life of a preacher, is one of service. Okay, Jesus came not to be served, but to serve, and he was baptizing people and washing their feet and things of that nature. That is the ultimate servant, and that's the one that we are to model ourselves. There's some preachers that you go to the church and they think they're exalted, and they're, when there's a meal, they get served first and all this stuff, and I'm like, woo, you know what I mean? That's a little much, and I don't think that's the biblical model at all. The Christian life is one of self-denial, but that when it comes to proclaiming, having a position of authority over God's people, especially in the community, you got to be very careful. And remember, it's not about you. It's about the one you're representing. Everything you could possibly become heated about and try to get raw with somebody, if you look at the question is, A, do I have a real right to be angry about this thing? Am I entitled to be upset? All right, because the beginning point of everything you get mad at and check somebody on is, I have the right to be mad about this. I'm entitled to deal with this. Once that's removed out of the way, probably about 87% of the stuff that used to bother you goes away once you realize I'm really nothing. I'm simply a servant. So it's all about the set of glasses through which you choose to see the office. I never defend the government name Brian James Shanley. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want. I don't really care as it relates to me, the person. However, the line becomes blurry. Like I said, once someone starts getting into, if you attack the person and destroy their credibility as a source of accurate information about spiritual matters, I have to respond to, if someone attacks the ministry God has given me, I have to defend its credibility, kind of the same way that Paul in 2 Corinthians 11 was defending his ministry against the super apostles, quote unquote, the fake preachers who were trying to undermine him. Because if I'm speaking the truth and someone would have heard me, but because my reputation in their sight has been damaged, then they're being robbed of stuff that's going to save them and help them. So out of respect to the people who sit at your feet and who hear you, you have to make sure that they understand that you know what you're talking about and that you are the real deal. And sometimes you do have to defend your ministry. A couple of years back, I got myself caught up playing basketball in North Minneapolis. All right. I'm in my 40s at this point, and these dudes are in their 30s, which means they're born in the 1980s primarily. So they're young. They're in their 30s, but they act like they're in their 20s. When I was a kid, you better be working by the time you're 16. By the time you're 18, you better have a diploma in your hand. My video games were put away when I became an adult. So this culture of grown men that play video games, they have a video game system in their house, and the television is in the living room in the central place of their whole universe. And they'll sit there for hours. The sun goes down and they're playing video games, and they're on their video game system in their house can connect in a computerized way with someone else's video game system in another state, and you're playing against other grown men. It's the crazy. Like I said, I'll walk into a bar, and if I see a Pac-Man machine or a Galaga, I'll put in a couple of quarters and have a moment. But I ain't having a video game system in my living room. I'm not having a TV in my living room as though this box is the thing around which all of life is gathered. But these 30-year-old men with their Nikes on that are more expensive than their car, all right? And they've got multiple pairs in the closet at home, like a very big kid. They've got a baseball hat. They've got a jersey. I don't know why anyone won't hire me. Look at how you portray yourself. Your pants are down like you're a homosexual prisoner just waiting to take it up the rectum from Bubba. And you think you're bad. That's the funny thing. You look effeminate, but you think you're hard. And it's just, it's mind-boggling. But so the 20s, it's like a glorified teen years for them. But then their 30s are like a glorified 20s. And they never, when it comes to thinking things through about the deeper issues of life, they haven't wrestled with any of it. So I'm trying to build a bond with some of the young people. And I'm playing some basketball. One of them knows me. Okay, when I'm in my early 20s teaching Bible school to kids who are itty bitties, by the time I'm in my 40s, they're in their 30s. If they grew up knowing me, from around the way, this kid was over south, so I'm over north now with a bunch of guys I don't know. But as a South Sider, this kid knew me. So as we're playing basketball, I'm just, I still got some surprise moves. I'm old. I'm a short, fat, white dude, but I can still bust out a jumper when I have to, and I can still talk trash or whatever. But this young man starts saying, the most gangster one on this whole court, you'd be surprised, is Shanley. And he's talking about, my younger days, running the streets or whatever you want to call it. And he thinks he's bolstering my reputation to these young men. But I don't want them to see me as Brian James Shanley from the neighborhood. I want them to see me as Reverend Dr. Brian James Shanley, who they can come to during their darkest hour and their most terrible despair when they need a word to be spoken or when they need to know the truth. Who am I? Why am I here? Why was I made? Things like that. I want them to be able to come to me about that stuff. But if my reputation is ruined and I'm being made to be like another dude from the neighborhood, they ain't going to come to me. So the basketball game goes on, and surprisingly, it's a game of 21. We play like 3 of them, and I win one of them. They're like, oh, how'd that happen? Because I'm me, jerk. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so they start walking away, and, I'm catching my breath because I'm dying. By the 3rd game of 21, when you're in your 40s, you're like, woo, kill me now, please. But I call him by his name. I said, come over here. And he acts like he wants to bring the whole crew, and I said, just you, just come over here. And he has his hands in the air like he's confused. I think he's afraid because he knows I'm about to get raw. All right? And so I said, look, he knows, his crew might be able to play a mean video game or whatever, or dress in a nice pair of shoes. My crew from my days would stack them like bags of rice. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not even a contest. Get your butt over here. We're going to talk. So he waves them. Go on. I'll be right there. And I bring him aside. I said, I love you. You're a good person and everything. And I know you meant well, but I don't want you to ever speak like that about me in front of them again. And he tried to get argumentative. And I'm like, look, I had to escalate. It would be in your best interest not to do that again. And even though he grew up in South Minneapolis, he viewed himself as a Chicago guy because he was there for the first couple of years of his life. So I said, fine. I mean, you're a long way from Chicago. What are you going to do? But the point is, I wasn't defending Brian James Shanley, the person. Okay, you can say, he's a jerk, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. But when you're interfering with my ability to positively impact lives, you're harming the ministry in the defense of the gospel, then I have to say something. So eventually, we shook hands and he understood. But, he wouldn't, he was doing more speaking than listening. And I finally had to just tell him, you need to stop. When a 5'7" white dude is looking up at about a 6'4" younger man telling him, stop talking or there's going to be a consequence, that bigger guy, he looks down like this dude is either crazy or he's stupid or he knows something I don't. But he knew I wasn't stupid because he knew me all his life. I mean, I knew his grandma. You know what I mean? I'll call your grandma, young man. No, please don't call my grandma. He's not afraid of guns or drugs or police, but he's afraid of grandma. Anyways, so this was a moment where I had to just say, look, you can talk about me all you want, but when it comes to, my ability to function as a possible spiritual advisor to these young men are facing death from the police, from rival people. They need to have someone they can call at the 11th hour, or whatever. And he understood that because I stood up for him in court once, and said, this is one of my Bible students, don't disproportionately sentence him. So he knows the power of a clergy person having the back of a young, disadvantaged guy who's trying to find his place in the world or whatever. So we had that bond, but my ultimate point is defend the gospel, defend God, defend Jesus, defend Christianity. Don't defend you, the person, but you must, because you're really nothing, but you must at some point defend the honor and the integrity of the ministry that God has given you, because by proxy, how they see that ministry is how they're going to see the message that you carry. You know what I mean? If God wanted to reveal the gospel to a lost and sin-filled and dying human race, he could have written it in the stars. He could have had an angel bring it. He could have done anything he wanted. He could have had animals speak it. You know what I mean? He could have wrote it in the trees. But he has preachers carrying it, and it's an honor, and it's a sacred responsibility, and it has to be jealously guarded. So, anyways, yeah, me and the young man that I'm describing right now in this is no longer on the earth. And that was a Minneapolis thing. But he knew I loved him. So, but maybe I shouldn't have used this story, but it was the one that came to my mind to illustrate the ultimate point that I'm making. Defend God, defend the gospel, defend the Bible, defend Christianity. You don't have to defend you, the person, because it's not about you. But yeah, you'll have to defend your ministry on occasion. And I hope that makes sense. I think I got time for one more.